The host has started broadcasting the meeting on Facebook.
Oh, okay, Zoom. That was abrupt. Hello, and welcome to the Misfit Business Lounge. If you didn't just have Zoom shouting at you down the mic, then we are back in the Misfit Business Lounge for our next guest speaker panel. Now, every single month, you are going to find a guest speaker panel inside of here where we're going to riff on all things business, emotional, physical well-being for women, and how we can step into living soul-aligned businesses whilst also making money and receiving and not taking away from any areas of our personal life. Now, I'm joined here today by Kristen and Lana, and we're going to be really dropping into the subject of how to prepare for your year ahead. Now, for me, this is such a controversial topic, especially in the arena of online businesses. And the reason why I say this is some people will say, plan your year, know what you're doing, know where you're going. And then other people will say, no, I just wing it and I just built my business by just going with the flow. And therefore, I wanted to host this conversation to see what actually creates these intentional years, these intentional milestones that are going to hold us at this highest capacity as business owners. Now, for me, preparation is absolutely everything. And I feel in January, I've been a little bit slower in the loud activity of my year because there's been things that I've been really grounding into behind the scenes, whether that be plans for my year ahead, tying up loose ends, making sure that our foundation is really, really solid so that we can then go in and create what it is that we truly want. And something that I recognize is that preparation scares a lot of people. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, they're stepping into, I'm feeling something and therefore I'm just going to go for it. If I get the download, if I get the idea, then I'm just going to go for it. And I've kind of learned the hard way that the preparation of asking the intentional questions of, first of all, what needs to go into this? How do I need to prep for this? How do I need to make this a reality? Those are the ways in which we start to raise and elevate our capacity. It is not our job to just throw everything out there as fast as possible. We have to start looking at what does it mean to be intentional with how we're doing things and actually make sure, are we prepared to do things to the highest degree? Because essentially our job as a business owner, and regardless of what industry you're in, is not just to get things out there and to make money, it's to really take care of our client experiences, to really take care of what it is that we're delivering, how we're housing our clients, how we're communicating our offers. And capacity is such a big word inside of my world. And when I look at capacity, it requires preparation. I didn't get to where I'm at right now just throwing things out there as fast as possible. I've had to spend a lot of time crafting, how is this going to be? What is going to be the preparation for this? And even though sometimes in the online world, it's really easy to know that we can just launch something really fast, but I've had to learn the hard way that the more time and energy goes into the things, the more that we can deliver it the way that's intended. So I just want to come to you, ladies, and see where you stand with preparation to begin with this controversial stand that I witness on the online space. Now, Lana, I'm going to come to you to begin with.
Yeah, I was actually just like typing some notes out there as you were talking because I was like, I don't want to forget anything that's coming into my head. I am like really with you on the like some people say prep, some people say don't prep. But feeling what into feels good for you is really important. One thing I think that's really come up for me recently, a couple of things actually, is the first one is we are still in the middle of winter. Like if you're in the UK, we are still in the middle of winter. Therefore, our energy is hibernation. It's rest, it's inwards, it's recluse, it's like really letting go and reflecting on the last year. But we're not quite ready to like go full steam ahead for this year. And that's usually why people, I'm in the health and fitness industry, so that's usually why people give up on their New Year's resolutions so quickly, is because they get all of this like energy and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to do all of the things, and then realize that actually, especially as women, as cyclical beings, like we're still in that like real kind of rest time. So I would say if you do kind of align with that and then you maybe get all of your motivation in more springtime, go with that. Like have plans but make them loose, like create a bit of space, new stuff to come in. Just because it's like January doesn't mean that you have to do it all right now. The other thing that's really coming up for me is and has happened a lot recently, is asking myself, does it make sense for me to do this in my business, for me to plan this? Because I think last year and maybe the year before, I got really distracted with like everybody launching things and doing this and doing that. And my energy was a bit like, oh my God, I want to do this. And I've had a download of this. And oh my God, I've got an idea of that. And actually, I was like spreading myself thin, and therefore my offers, my messaging, people were a bit like, wait, does she do this? Does she do that? And I went to an event recently, and they said, like, if you're making under 100K a year, or about 150, like, you really just need to niche down, focus on some very simple things, and then selling that, and really kind of refine your message. And actually, that's what I've been doing over the last couple of months. And for me personally, it's created like so much less noise, and therefore so much more energy that I can really put behind what I do offer, and therefore get a better client experience because of it. And it's like building, building blocks and stepping stones. And I think, especially in our industries of being in the world of online coaching, all you're seeing all day, every day is like, make 50K, make 1 million, do this, do that. And actually, if you don't have the foundation set up, you're not going to be able to get to that goal. You're not going to be able to hold that goal. The capacity isn't there to get to it. So when we're talking about like goal setting and planning things for our year ahead, does it actually make sense for you to aim up here? Or do we actually need to just aim here, and then in a few months, like, pivot and then change and change? And of course, it's good to have these big goals, but does that make sense for you and your business right now? And does it make sense and feel good for your nervous system, I think, is another thing.
I love this. And I think actually a lot of people are skipping steps that are needed inside of business. So something you touched on there, and I actually had this conversation the last call I did in my mastermind, was around building phases of business. Because if you want to do all these really big things, you have to have building phases. And I really feel like in the beginning of the year, it's an introductory of, am I in a building phase, or have I locked it in and I just need to be throwing offers out there? And a lot of people, they're still in visibility stages. They haven't yet got the active audience. They can't just throw out an offer and sell it like that. They're actually in a season of building relationships, getting visible, being intentional with their audience. And they're beginning to feel confused because they're not spending the time crafting that visibility. And when we look at visibility, it's one of the biggest components involved in prepping our year. And it's a stage in our business that never expires. And we have to know when is the right season to take ourselves back into that. For example, me right now, I'm going back into my visibility stage, reflecting on, okay, where are we going to maximize what we've already done in business? I'm treating my business like nobody knows what I'm doing. I'm back, I'm active, I'm doing the things that are going to build my foundation so that I can establish those relationships again. And then when you've got that, it's like, okay, I can just sell to these people and that's easy. But then there might be another building phase. And it's being willing to assess in your business what stage you're in and understand how to maximize that. Because I completely agree with if you're under 150,000, there's profit first that's needed. And sometimes, let's say, investing in, things that are going to be shiny, or making decisions on a whim, like, is not going to be the most profitable thing at 150,000. And I learned this the hard way. It really is about how can we secure our foundation so that we can elevate more of what it is that we desire whilst feeling energetically held. And sometimes in those, and it's 150,000 isn't low in any way, shape, or form, but in those lower realm, it's about where can we profit and actually just allow ourselves to be intentional with receiving. And something I've noticed is that people don't allow themselves to just feel comfortable receiving. It's like they're always thinking about the next goal, the next launch, the next investment, to the point where they actually take from maybe their own cup rather than receiving first and then looking at where do we throw this in the long term. And I guess that comes down to the short term and the long term together, and how do we marry them up so that, yes, we're making money right now because there's a need for your business to make money, but also in the long term, this is where we want to go, and this is where we want to steer ship, and these are the big things that we want to be creating, knowing that there gets to be like an amplified state of those things as well. Because every time I launch an offer, every time I do an event, like, there's something that you learn the hard way, you adapt, you shift, you integrate. And it's almost like sometimes we need to give ourselves permission to amplify and say, what could I do with the resources that I have right now? Whether that be financial, whether that be physical resources, what can I do with the resources that I have? Knowing that then we can evolve into what it is that we want to create and step into these bigger positionings. So Kristen, I just want to come to you and see what this is bringing to the surface.
Well, you know me, I love a good plan. So, but I also was a really bad planner, like, in my business. I have planners, I have calendars all over my house. My clients love to make fun of me because I have a calendar on my fridge. I have like I live by my phone calendar. I have one in my office. I'm literally staring at it right now. It's a 3-month calendar. And what I really started having to do, and this is really what like started locking in more clients, making more money, really just like making me feel like what you like we talk about a lot, feeling like a business owner versus a CEO, and that's what really like started making the shift is intentional planning. And I think this goes a lot back to what Lana was saying. And does it make sense for your business? Because people will like host planning courses and like do all of these things and tell you that you have to plan every single detail. When in reality, no, you don't. You theoretically should have an idea, and I'm not a big fan of the word should, but if you want to get to your goals, you kind of have to know how you're getting there, right? So that's always my big thing is you have to kind of know how you're getting there. So what I usually do personally is I have my big goals for the year. I break it down into quarters. And then I will leave my room, like self room to play within the quarter. So like right now, I want to run like my 6-figure messaging course, like sometime within the first quarter. I know I'm not going to be able to do it before Boston, right? Like I will not be able to do it. So I know it's going to be the back half of the quarter, and that's fine. It's given me a lot more room to play with like maybe back end stuff and like maybe not as much like visibility building, but maybe more like back end building type things. And if you at least know what you're like kind of doing and the plan is a soft plan, it allows you to make it a little more malleable. So you can at least like kind of mold it to what you want.
And something you said there in regard to back end planning, I feel like this is what people suck at. Because when I say back end planning, people think that they're doing it, but all they're really doing is creating content and sending it out. And they think that that bare minimum is enough to build their business. And when you speak about back end, they look at you like a deer in headlights, like, what the fuck am I meant to be doing? And this is the whole intention of your business. If you're not working your back end, it doesn't matter how shiny your content is, you are not going to start scaling your business the way that you desire, because the back end is you actually understanding what does my business need right now in this season. And if you're somebody where, let's say, your client intake is very, very slow, then what your business needs is relationships. You need that stronger foundation. You need to look at, okay, how am I going to build into that? So for example, me now this year, I'm looking at what does it look like to build more of the masses, where I've been very intentional and created this very close-knit community of buyers. Can I actually stretch the capacity of how many people I can sell to? And where do I need to focus in the relationships to make that possible? How do I need to intentionally focus on the back end of how I'm delivering myself, communicating myself, honoring my relationships, so that when I create content, like, it's guaranteed to sell, it's guaranteed to happen. Again, there's going to be these questions where you need to sit there and look at the behind the scenes is you understanding, like, what is, if you know what your business needs, what is your action to create that? And it's not just a case of, okay, I know I need to build relationships, so I'm just going to hope the relationships are going to build. Sometimes the back end is the creativity in, but what could we actually challenge to make that happen? And the creativity of challenging yourself is what gets you out of your comfort zone, because I think it's easy to get lazy, especially in the online world, of, well, the relationships will just come to me. Everybody is on social media. We're all here together. The relationships will just come. And actually, that is us giving bare minimum. We're not challenging our energy to say, but where could I take myself if I started to think outside of the box? What gets to be possible if I started to think outside of the box? And it's sometimes not about the, like you said, the rigidness of planning every single thing. It's about actually asking what I'm doing. Am I doing it from bare minimum, or am I doing it from intention? And where can I stretch my barrier to say, I'm not just going to do this in a bare minimum way. I'm going to think outside the box. And this kind of goes to where we were steering in the mastermind chat yesterday around like letting go of narratives, especially in the online world. Assess your business, assess your business's needs, but also really look at what is the challenge of that, because we all get into these comfort zones and these like autopilots of creating, and we have to understand that energy is a changeable unit. So what worked last year might not work this year for bringing in your clientele. How you sold one launch might not work this launch, because energy is a changeable unit. And if your business is tired, your business is tired. So you have to look at what am I going to do to understand how I'm going to carry this out for my business in a way that also unleash the creativity so that I can get more momentum flowing behind my business again. I'm going to come back to you, Kristen. I can see your hand up.
Okay. This is a really good like topic and subtopic, I guess. And someone in the comments asked the question, how do you define the back end? So I think this is a really good like segue conversation that I'm interested to hear everyone's thoughts on. And I know everyone in the comments will also benefit on, because like when I personally look at the back end, I'm looking at things that are not outright going to get me clients, that are not outright going to get me visibility, but it's going to be more like your foundational business things. It's going to be like your paperwork, your admin, your emails, like maybe your team if you have one. And honestly, I'm going to say something slightly probably controversial. If you're making under $150,000, you probably don't need a team, because you probably can still do everything yourself. And I've been on both sides of that. So like that's why I say it's controversial, because I know how beneficial it can be. And I also know how obviously there are exceptions, there are caveats. And I think overall the overarching like online business owner probably doesn't need a team. That's besides the point. So then we're looking at like, I don't know, other things that probably like system issues, things like that. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts also.
Ooh, I like this. So back into me, the way that I see front of house is my energy being visible to my audience. So that's like when I'm giving you my energy in any capacity, that is my front of house, because I'm taking the energy that I feel and I'm expressing it in a way that you can witness it. That is front of house to me. But what I see as back end is definitely the systems, the sales analysis. The amount of people I know in business that don't analyze their sales is fucking mind-blowing. Like, how do you make any money not knowing what you did last quarter or how you did it? And people are like, I once had a 5K client, but I don't know how to do it again. I'm like, have you looked at your business? How did you sign that client in the first place? What did you do? And I feel like the sales analysis, that also then goes into the relationship building, because it shows you where you were maybe switched into something versus where you're switched out of something right now. So it's not like the relationship building. I actually see that as a back end thing, because your business, when you're in the back end and you're looking at your systems and you're analyzing your sales and you're understanding what's working. So Lewis will sit down and he'll go through my content and be like, what are the contents that people love from you? And what is that revealing to your audience? Like, where is that honor in the relationship? So that we can actually understand, what do my audience want? And that's a big, big question, especially when the narrative can be, say what you want to say and just hope that your audience get it. However, I am for this and not for this at the same time. And you guys know that I'm a hypocrite, because you have to be if you're going to succeed in business, because it's neither black or white, like it's both. But when it comes down to, you know, what do your audience want? Yes, I'm going to say what I want to say and what excites me, but also I have to understand your needs or I wouldn't be doing my job. I can't just speak at you and say, why are you not getting it? If you're not getting it, you're not getting it for a reason. So the back end is always having that one thought in our community, understanding what is going on with them. What are they not getting? Where are they not getting the biggest results that I would like them to get? Again, analyzing our client dynamics so that we can understand, what do we need to serve and give to you so that you can actually integrate it. So if we look at my sales language program that I created, that was all about understanding that each person, they digest information at a different rate, because there are so many different learning types in a person that if you're just speaking to one type of person, they might not be understanding what it is that you're saying. And you saying, I'm just going to say what I want to say, is dismissing a whole range of people. You know, some people, they don't auditory compute, but they might be a visual person, or they might need more can't get my words out, implementation, integration, like they're going to need more. And you have to stop thinking about me and my needs and think about their needs. That is when you evolve as a business owner, because one of the things that I know has allowed me to bring in multiple different clients is speaking to them in the way which they understand. And if people are coming back to me with the same problem time and time and time again, I'm not saying let's just address this in the same way. I'm getting intentional with their business and saying, well, what's going on in your content? Where are we not computing? How can we change that up? How can we shift that? So these are things that you need to be looking at in your business of what is not working and how can we ditch that really fast and focus on what is working. Again, I don't want to sit there and focus, and this is for myself, but also for my clients, and focus on what's not working. I think the online community has done that for years. What's not working? Where am I in lag? Like all of these things. It's not working. Ditch it. Focus on what is working. So if you have something in your business that's really, really hot right now, and it's connecting you with your clientele, and it's bringing in the money, and it's making things operate, you want to be doing more of that because it's working. It's making you feel good. It's making you have a certain experience. And I guess the back end is understanding where is the dead weight. Because when you drop off the dead weight, you're more intentional. And you can only be intentional with your business when you understand the back end. Not everything is about communication to your audience. Sometimes you have to look at what is going into the communication with my audience so that I can do that in a more intentional way. And I can make sure that that magnetizes the way that I truly desire. And again, even just dropping into this beginning quarter, because I know that at the end of this month, I'm going to be leaning into the Empress Mind launching again. Like a lot of my energy is going into how am I going to connect with my community and help them to understand the depth of this container and what it's going to bring to the surface. So it's not about there and just going and launching the Empress Mind. It's actually them understanding their needs so that I understand how to deliver the Empress Mind so that my launch is guaranteed to be successful. I'm not just going out there and launching, hoping that people get it. I'm strategically dropping in and understanding my audience's needs, because the more you understand your audience's needs, the more you can sell during your launch process. Now, Lana, I'm going to come to you and would love to know how you do the back end versus front of house thing.
Yeah, so for me, the back end like really resonated with what you were saying then about like where is the dead weight, and I loved what you were saying about let's focus on what is working, not what's not working. For me, the back end is all about like reflect and project. So do I have the systems, the capacity, etc., to run this business successfully? Because it's no good me bringing in the clients and me launching and me doing all of the things if I cannot deliver to them, like if I cannot hold them, if I cannot change their lives and get the results that I know they're capable of and I'm capable of delivering. So for me, back end is like, are the systems in place? Is everything up and running as it should be? Am I like working on my client retention, my communication, the success of the business in general, and then like reflecting on the sales, how the client experiences, all of those things that I'm constantly like reflect, project. So the projection is the like, okay, I want the clients, I'm going to post the content, I'm going to launch, and like you say, going into your empress phase, like going into that real kind of, okay, let's go out there. And it doesn't matter if you like guys all speak the same language and everyone's matched on the same page, if then when the clients come in, your business cannot hold them. So for me, back end is like, that's got to be here. And then front end and front of house with like my visible energy, like they've both got to match and kind of be a nice pair and that like yin and yang. Otherwise, like business isn't going to work. And it's the same for the flip end, right? Like, if you've got shit back end but amazing front end, it's not going to work. And vice versa, you could have incredible back end, but if you're not getting the clients into the business in the first place, then no one's going to experience the amazing, like, back end systems of what you can deliver.
Yes, and this is kind of taking me back to when I used to really want my first 100K cash month. And I used to think I was doing everything to create the 100K, but I absolutely was not ready for it at that point because it was focused on what do I need to do this month to get to the 100K. And now when I look at my business and we reach these big milestones, it's not coming from just this month. And that's something that then helps you hold a capacity. You can't necessarily bring in 20 clients at one-to-one without feeling overwhelmed and giving a service that doesn't feel expansive for you or for the client. And therefore, just what you were saying around like, can I actually hold this? What we have to look at is what I desire for my business in this year ahead. How am I going to do it in a way where it feels safe? So something I try to stretch my clients into is whatever it is that you want, you can have. If it's the 100K, 50K, 80K, 200, you can have it. But rather than desiring it in the next 30 days, how can you desire it in the next 6 months so that when you receive it, it's a sustainable platform? And I guess you probably experienced this in the fitness and nutrition stage of is not about getting to your goal in 30 days. It's about making it sustainable. How can this be just a part of who you are versus how do I get there as fast as possible? So when I look at my January being slow, it can be slow because I've had my seasons of summer, like you were speaking about, and also my business has the foundation of that reoccurring cash flow, so that even if I don't want to show up, there's that platform of being held and there's that platform of being taken care of. So it really is about sustainability and how you're choosing that sustainability so that you can evolve and you can do the things you want to do, but in a way that's not going to overwhelm you. And I guess that goes to some offers are going to be able to bring in numerous people. Other offers are going to be very, very intentional with how you serve. And it's again understanding where you positioning them in your year so that you can maximize the energy there. Kristen, I'm going to pivot back to you.
I love the idea. And it's like consistently bringing that intention, right? Because I feel like when we're talking about looking at making a plan in general, it doesn't even just have to be for your business. It can be for like cleaning your house. Like the intention is what matters. And I loved what Lana was talking about with like client experience, right? We both know that I've like dealt with a lot of client experience things the past like month. And I had another experience this past weekend where I walked into a tattoo shop. And for anyone who doesn't know, like I'm covered in tattoos. And I walked into a tattoo shop, one I've been in many times. And I was the only female in there. Now, normally, like if you've ever gotten a tattoo, you've been in a tattoo shop, it's 99% of the time filled with men. That's fine. It doesn't bother me. What does bother me is if you don't talk to me or don't even acknowledge me because of like how I look. And I have more tattoos than probably most of the people standing in there. So like I know like what I'm doing and things like that. It's not like I walked in as a newbie. And so that like client experience stopped me easily from spending $1,000 plus because I was ready to like talk to someone about a big piece. I loved their work on Instagram. Like I was so excited. And I went home to my husband and I was like, I'm not going there anymore. I was like, I'm gonna stick to our like shop that we've been going to for like the past few months. And he was like, what happened? So I told him, and he was like, is this what it's like often? And I was like, yes, especially if you're a female. So then like we had a whole client experience talk. And I wish people understood that a lot of your back end planning pushes itself out so hard into the front. And that's where like they have to balance because they will leak into each other unintentionally, unconsciously, but they will. And if you're not able to, with intention, provide that client experience, you are going to lose so much money. And that is one of the only times I will ever tell anyone that you're leaving money on the table.
Yes, and the awareness of that is a really big thing. And you know, I've experienced this firsthand on both sides, right? I've been the one that could have done things better, and I've also been the one that's had, you know, the repercussion of that. So we are all learning and evolving, and it's safe to learn and evolve without defining yourself, but it's the awareness of how you're going to do that and how you're going to allow yourself to be intentional to say, do you know what? I missed the mark there. I could do better here. And really ask and consider, and we spoke about this as well, but considering every single decision that you're making of, is this cost effective? Is this beneficial? Or is this me responding? Am I responding to a situation because I think I need to do something, because I think I need to sell something? Or is it coming with the like, yes, the full capacity's in it. Let's get it out there. Let's birth it. Let's step it into its magic, because those small decisions, they might just feel like decisions for now, but they're really big fucking decisions. And client experience is huge. It's the way that we allow ourselves to facilitate our environment. I know that last week I had, and Kate, if you're watching this, she's a client of mine that is no longer paid. And she messaged me and she was like, you're the only mentor that has continued giving me energy even when I'm not paying you. And I was a bit taken back like that. I was like, is that how we play here? Because ultimately, it doesn't matter if someone's paying you, if they're a 10K client, if they're a 2K client, if they're a 1K client, a dollar client, like it doesn't matter. You should be giving everybody the same time, energy, and attention. Where people get frustrated with this is they feel like they can't do that with boundaries. And that's not the case. You can have the boundaries. You can cut the conversation short. You can decide, hey, you know, you keep asking and nothing's changing here. It's not about invading and wanting from me, but it is about me understanding that I'm going to have a level of respect for you, whether you're paying me or not. And I guess this goes back to something that is like an old school belief. And I actually want to bring this to the surface of the customer is always right. Okay. Now, this is something that people have multiple different standpoints on. And I guess we've all probably been in multiple different instances of this. However, as I'm riffing on this, even when I've had clients that have openly said, hey, you've missed the mark, like there's always been something for me to absorb in that, regardless of how intentional I was in the process and whatever I tried to facilitate, and maybe even given the best of my ability, there is always a reflection of that in the process. So I think that comes into, as business owners, are we willing to evolve? Are we willing to hear what it is that we need to hear? Or are we blinkers on of, no, I'm right, I'm the best, I'm the hierarchy, and whatever you say, like, it's not valid. And I see this on social media all the time. These like, you know what, push you aside, doesn't matter. When actually I believe, regardless of how it comes across, there's always something for us to learn. And yes, that's heavy. And I've been in situations where I'm like, this is a lot to digest. But it's in doing that we learn about ourselves, and that we learn about what we need to see about ourselves to evolve and be a leader and be at the capacity of holding really big businesses. Because ultimately, if you are somebody who desires to have, and you might not desire it, you can desire whatever you want, but if you want a multiple, you know, $1 million corporation, business, whatever you want, that doesn't come with closing your blinkers off. It comes with these long-lasting, reoccurring clientele and relationships. So, Kristen, how do you feel about the customer is always right?
I hate that phrase so much, but it's because I worked in retail for so long and people were so mean. I got tainted so bad for that. Okay, so I 1000% believe in trusting your clients and their experience. Because if a client comes to me and ever says, hey, like something's not working, like you're missing the mark, I'm missing the mark, like something's happening, there's never a point where I'm going to sit there and go, it's definitely all you, babes. Like, that's it. Like, game over. So, and it's because I personally I think I don't have the ego to ever do that. Will I do it to my husband? Absolutely, 1000%. However, I couldn't see myself doing it to like a client, someone who's paying me, someone who's even just like in my community. And I think a lot of it is because like a lot of the things I talk about are like inclusivity, equity, equality, things like that, especially in your business, in your marketing, things like that. And that comes with the territory of I have to be willing to always have the hard conversations, to always be open to learning more, and to also, with that, be open to being wrong or not always hitting the mark on things. And I think that's been really like humbling for me. So it's, as much as I hate that phrase, sometimes within reason, because there are always like that, there's always that like one outlier. Within reason, yes, that is absolutely correct in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to come to Lana, but just before I switch over, I think something that came through for me then was like, where are we always willing to see, hear, and feel, even maybe what we don't want to see, hear, and feel? So whether it be a customer or whether it be our business, if our business is not serving us to the highest degree right now, meaning we desire more, we want more, there's something to see, hear, and feel. So your business is almost a customer that's speaking to you and saying, hey, I'm not satisfied. Our business is broken, the foundation, that's broken. And we have to see, hear it, and feel it. And it requires us to kind of let go of that defensiveness and listen to what's being communicated. Lana, I'm going to come to you.
Yeah, Kristen, as you were talking then, I was like, yes, I so resonate with all of this and like really agree with what you're saying. And literally right as you said the word ego, I had just written down, I think it comes down to ego. because that's like most things, right? And it's, I think, do you have the emotional awareness to see another person's point of view, like open to being wrong, like removing the blinkers? But what's really important in all of that is, can you hold balanced judgment? So when it's like our business and, you know, we're the CEO or we're still in the weeds of the business, whichever way around, it's your baby, like it's your thing. So then when somebody comes and they've got, you know, a client experience and they're like, this has been shit or this hasn't lived up to it, we're going to get triggered by that. So when planning for your year ahead, like, are you able to also make sure that you are thinking about how your communication maybe will develop in that year ahead and how you can remain flexible, so that when something comes up, like dealing with client experience, client journey, feedback, whether that's positive or negative, can you hold a space from a completely balanced judgment perspective and not let your ego get involved? Because I know for me personally, and just like, I'm really obsessed with like watching just people, basically, like people watching, understanding how the brain works, all of that is like totally fascinating to me. And I truly believe that 9 times out of 10, the problem is always communication. So somebody is expecting something and you haven't delivered because your communication wasn't clear. And then maybe you also didn't enforce or hold boundaries in a way that you could have done, that meant that there was flex and play, but like there is also a line in the sand here that, you know, I can meet you at that line, but I'm not going to cross it. So I think that's something really important to consider. And personally, I've been working on a lot over the last like 12 months, is making sure, like, how is my communication? Am I remaining super flexible? Have I got balanced judgment? And yeah, where we can start to like enforce boundaries in a kind way is really important as well. But I think a lot of it also comes down to that expectation from the client, is if they've had a poor client experience or that whole like the customer is always right thing. Well, where was the expectation set that they were right? Like regardless, you know, like where were the kind of leaky boundaries with that?
I love this because I think communication is one of my biggest focus points for this year, not just for my client spaces, but for myself, because we have a communication and a narrative with ourselves, and our communication with ourselves, you know, determines absolutely everything in our reality. And I've spoken quite openly that this year for me is about stretching my mind capacity, meaning that I am going to be pushing myself in exercising and showing up for myself and holding myself accountable and doing these things that are stretching my mind, because that's my communication with myself to understand how far are you willing to take yourself. So again, in my business, it's the mind of, okay, but how are you willing to stretch yourself? Now, obviously, last year, I fucked up on an event venue, and that was a big thing for me, and I had to learn the hard way. But one thing that I did to implement that was we sent out after my last event like a form structure. And in that, obviously, you're exposing yourself to hearing everything, the good, the bad, the like absolutely everything. And that's an intense process. But if you can't learn from your clientele, who can you learn from? Because your clientele are not here to be people that make you feel like you're not good at what you do or that you can't evolve. They're here to actually hold you at the, I love this, but also this. And they're a great reflection point. And maybe going into this year, it's a great thing for all of us to look at our clientele and say, okay, I want to hear it all, the good, what can we work on? What would you prefer? Like, do you like this? Do you prefer that? Because it really does stretch you and allow you to see in multiple different ways where you can evolve and how you maybe miss the mark and can tweak. But that doesn't mean that the customer is always right in the sense of this is right and you're wrong. What it means is that there's open communication and you're humanizing the process of business. Just like if you went for a meal and it was bad, it's not, I'm never going to eat in this restaurant again. It might be like, hey, just so you know, I had this experience. Usually I love it here, but this was the thing. And it's almost like we have to be willing and open to say, where can I communicate clearly with my audience in a way where I humanize myself rather than put myself on a pedestal, where we feel unobtainable to our audience in a way that maybe affects our plans in our business. Because if we have all these plans of launching these things, but we don't have client relationships, that's obviously going to cause some rift. So I think the communication is one of the biggest things in business. Communication with yourself, communication with your audience, and also just dropping off the pedestal. We're all human beings. We're all big girls. Like, we have to be willing to see reflections And also criticism, like your business is criticizing each and every one of us right now. If we were to look at the things that we want to change about our business, there is some criticism happening in the business that is showcasing to you who you get to become. And being willing to actually see that again in the exercise process, or whatever it is that you're doing in life, there's some criticism. If you're not showing up for the exercise, but you desire to build a stamina around exercise, that physical reality is exercise is criticizing you and saying, this is on you, girl, like you're not showing up, you're not committing. And it's like, where do we allow ourselves to not judge and define ourselves by the process of evolving as business owners? Because it's a constant evolution. We have to shift, we have to adapt, we have to tweak. And it's almost like we're evolving, holding our leadership and learning continuously in one. And I'd be interested to see how you guys balance that, because it is a mastery of I'm leading the space and I'm here to be your leader, but also I'm learning and I'm evolving and there's mess and there's things that I need to figure out. Lana, I'm going to come to you.
Yeah, I absolutely love this because I have always been a very open person. Like, I'm Cancer star sign, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm like, I love fucking hard and I like throw everything at it. But then I can get like wounded really quickly as well. And over the last 5, maybe 6 years, I have had to do a lot of work on my emotional intelligence, my communication, my awareness, like all of those things. And it's been a really, like, at times, very tough journey because it's been extremely vulnerable. However, all of the way through that, I've shared it. Like, I've talked to people about it. I have shared it like with my clients. I'm on my business page, like everything, because for me, it's fucking exciting. Like, growing and developing and stretching ourselves. For me, I absolutely love it. That like deep love for personal development is so high for me. And it's made, therefore, my business what it is. And actually, it's why clients come to me, is because they're like, you're vulnerable. Like, you show when you fuck up and you own it. Like, I years ago, 6 years ago, and then like my entire life until 6 years, right? I was never somebody that could like apologize for something or take like responsibility. It was always everybody else's fault. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, what somebody said to me, what's the common denominator in all of these stories? And I was like, oh, it's me. Fuck. So then I went on this massive journey and was like, right, I really like, if things are going to change, I need to change. But I talk to my clients about that and I tell them like my stories of where maybe I fucked up, maybe, where we can open the communication a bit more. And actually I had a conversation with a client last week and I said to her, what I'm about to say is gonna like slightly coming from a place of tough love, but it's to open up a potentially difficult conversation. But I really want you to like keep an open mind with it. And I'm not saying this because, like I'm trying to call you out on your behavior or anything like that. I'm saying it like with so much love because I want to hold the space for you to expand. And that's what somebody did for me. And I'm always really grateful for that. And if I didn't do that and I didn't like offer those conversations to my clients, I wouldn't be the coach that I am today and I wouldn't have the business that I do today. And 9 times out of 10 people take it well. They're like, okay, like I did. I was like, oh, fuck, okay, the common denominator is me. But I think it takes like a level of kind of self-awareness to get to that point, to then be able to help other people like stretch and mold to it. But yeah, that's like, I think for me, it's the molding of the two, of always keeping on working on myself, but like outwardly showing people like this is where I'm at and showing up vulnerably with it so that they can see, because we're all human. And I personally myself would rather invest in somebody that shows me like that personal side than like a load of stats and numbers and pretends everything's okay. And then when you're actually working with them, you're like, what's going on? Didn't know any of this.
Yes. And I think there's beauty in the messiness when you can see someone else evolving. Like, there is absolutely magic. And some of our biggest lessons as business owners, regardless of your industry, come from the messiness. And that allows you to then compute that and communicate that to your audience in a way where they get to skip that process. So nobody needs professionalism. They just need you to be open to being on this journey. And I guess at times, this comes back into planning, because if you are holding yourself at a level of perfectionism, and I did this in probably the early 2 years of my business versus the last 3 years, it's like, okay, you can come on the ride with me and whatever, we'll just kind of intentionally vocalize it. but also it is learning to see it from an outside lens, almost take yourself out and witness it from all points of view. But I've seen a shift in the way that people experience me since I've been more open with certain things. It's like people see your leadership differently because they see you on the, okay, actually it's relatable. I don't need perfectionist. I need relatability, and I need someone who can go through, the process with me and be in the transition. So I love what you brought to the surface there. And I'm going to come to you, Kristen.
I love that too, honestly. And my big thing is I've always been an open book, sometimes too open. Like some people, that's debatable for them. My poor mother would absolutely agree with that. And my big thing I had to learn, especially in being able to maybe like have my business, but also like share the wins, the losses, the fuck ups, everything like that, is that you can't share it from a place of lack, because people can smell that from a mile away. I watched a post where someone like tried to basically inflate the way they handled something, and you could smell the bullshit from like Mars at this point. And it's one of those things where I personally had to learn, and I learned this through like my divorce, through like family members dying, through my mom dying in the middle of a course launch, through like I don't know, like I got doxxed and like review bombed on with my business like back in 2019. And I had to learn that if you talk about it, sometimes right then and there, you're going to be so emotionally charged that it's not even funny. And that lack, it leaks out, whether you intend it to or not, it leaks out. And that's when people don't see you as a leader anymore. They see you as, oh, well, they're just another person who doesn't know what they're doing. So my rule of thumb, and this is just personally, is I like to be 2 steps ahead. I will talk about something that happened, but I need to be 2 steps ahead first. And it is easily saved my behind in so many things, because I could make a post now about maybe something that happened in December that like really kind of, at the time emotionally made me feel all sorts of different ways. Now I get to talk about how I felt the emotions, what I did with them, how I led myself through it, and how this benefits my clients. So those are all the like pieces that if you're not able to do it in that moment, you get to really ask yourself, how does this benefit my audience? Because if it doesn't, and you're just venting or you're just trying to make yourself look good, then it doesn't fucking matter, because they're not going to see you in any different of a light, especially in a leadership light.
Ooh, this conversation is so juicy. I'm like, this has to be on YouTube and Instagram and everywhere. But just something, and then this is kind of going back to what you brought to the surface, Lana, around like really understanding and taking responsibility. I think in doing that, that's what allows us to cut free from like the lessons that keep on re-navigating. Because I think I found even in my client circle, somebody who was having, let's say, money struggles 3 years ago in their business, but they're still in the same position. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? There is something that is happening. Where can we either take responsibility? Is it something you're physically doing with finances, or is it responsibility that you need to take of your business? But where do we actually decide this is not a cycle that I want to continue? And that is really, really difficult to do, because it does require you to fully see yourself. And I'm going to reflect back to the event that I hosted in September, and I know you were there, Lana, and I fucked up on the venue, but I was also annoyed because the venue fucked up, right? So in that instance, it's really easy to say the venue did this, but on kind of sitting back, it's like, where do I need to change for future events so that actually the venue don't have the potential to mess up? And it required me to look at, yes, I bucked this and that wasn't that, but also I could have been more attentive with making sure prior to the event that it was what it is that I wanted. And that required me to go through the process of the ups and the downs. And it was a journey. It knocked my confidence. It held me back. But it was about, where do I not let this define me, and openly communicate this and adapt and, gain the experience. And that to me was a really humbling experience, because I had to learn that next stage of business that was, okay, there's going to be deep mess, and there's going to be mess in the limelight. Meaning that when you're front of house and you're building a business, you can't hide your fucking mess. People are going to cotton on. They're going to know. They're going to see it. They were a part of the day. And sometimes it's like, where can I bite it and just lean into it. So I knew in my gut that day, this isn't quite right. And I was like, I have to say something before anybody else does. And then it's like, okay, the aftermath is, where do we deal with this, integrate this? And that's a process. So there's always these like double-ended energies in business of, you're allowed to grow, you're allowed to evolve, but what is your business personally showing you right now? And this isn't just about, events or courses or any of those things. It's about actual intentional, like, what is not meeting the mark in your reality of finances? What do you need to learn? What do you need to cut free from? Because if you're having the same cycle again and again and again, there is something that is not being learned. There is something that is not being witnessed and is not being learned and is not being evolved from. And until you can learn and witness that thing, you're going to continue. Now, Lana, I'm going to unmute you.
Thanks. It was actually so beautiful to witness you with that event space issue, because, and it like was just about to go into what I was going to say when Kristen was talking, which was about exactly what you were saying, Kristen, sharing vulnerably, but from a healed place. So like when you actually then have the perspective and you have the full story to share, because you've come around full circle, then you can show up as a relatable leader. Because like you said, Rosie, like they don't need or want perfectionism, they want relatability, but they don't want victim. And what you were saying was like, you noticed and you felt in your gut that day that something wasn't right. So you said something ahead of everybody else, but it was minimal. It was like, this didn't feel right, but I'm sorting it out. And then it was like some time, like week or month or whatever, once you had processed that, once you had gone through your journey with it, and then you shared it publicly. You were like, hey, this has happened, this fucked up, this is how I fixed it, and this is how I'm now showing up as a relatable leader, so that I can show to you like these things happen, but you can come around full circle from it. But all of that like work that you did in between, that was like personal work that you had done, that you don't need to like bare your soul from right there in the moment and be like, a real raw nail bed of like, oh my God, this has happened and I'm devastated. Can share that bit afterwards, like when the full story has happened. And that's like a great example of literally like in you and your business, and how you publicly kind of like showed up, went and did the other work, and then came back round to be that relatable leader that you are. Not coming from a place of perfectionism, but also not coming from a place of like lack or that like victim mentality.
Now, looking at your business here, because obviously you're in the fitness and nutrition space, I'm intrigued to the conversation. I know we've kind of gone off on a tangent here, but I feel like it needs to be had, and I've enjoyed the conversation. But looking at you and your business, like where do you think this comes into the relationship, one that you have with your clients, but also with planning your business and the way that you get to grow and kind of take your business to the next level?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I think, especially because my business is in health and like mindset and things like that, I am fucking human. So I also struggle with my health sometimes. I also struggle with like body issues sometimes. I also struggle with mindset issues sometimes. And what's really important to me, and like a hard lesson that I've learned over the years, is like, share once the thing has passed, and then people will continue to like see you as a leader and find you really relatable. Because we've all got goals, we've all got dreams, like you with your business and where you want to take it. There'll be periods of time where you maybe weren't hitting goals or weren't doing things, but people still want to be inspired by what you're doing. And sometimes I feel like in the past, I have found it like maybe the content that I've written or the way that I've shown up, I've almost felt like not authentic. Because when I first started out the business, I started out as a personal trainer. I moved online. My mum passed away, and I put 3 stone on. It was just an absolute shit show. I was training other women how to lose weight when I had a weight problem and a food problem and an emotional eating problem. So at that point, it felt like inauthentic for me to show up and be like, oh, do this, when I like wasn't doing any of it myself. So that's been like a real lesson that I've learned over the years. And I've had the business for 7 years now. So I'm well out of all of that and that kind of cycle, because I've grown as well as my business has grown. But I think at that point, I was probably like not sharing enough about my struggles because I felt like I couldn't. And then also not going the other way of like sharing too much. There wasn't that like happy medium and happy balance, I guess.
And I think that's embodied leadership, when we can say, how am I embodied in the thing that I'm doing? Because it's not that. And I saw a post, actually, I think it was last year, and it was a relationship coach that was getting slandered because she'd gone through a separation. And I was like, she's a human being. She can be a master of her craft, yet still be going through a process with her relationship. And that doesn't mean that she's, inauthentic. It means that she has to embody and practice what she preaches so that she can continue to be available. And I think that's what it is that we're always learning what it is that we're good at. For example, a boxer, like, they don't just maintain their status by not continuously working out. They have to work out, put in the fuel, put in the momentum. And the more embodied you can be in what it is that you communicate, the more confidence you're going to have in selling. And just like you witnessed that in yourself, I think it's something that everybody's witnessed at some point in their business of, I'm not, selling, or something's not happening because I need to practice what I preach. And if you haven't yet, I highly recommend that every single person takes their own programs, their own courses, like does their own workshops, because there's so much that I learn from myself in the motion of my work, but it's my commitment to continuously prioritize the work whilst being the leader. Kristen, I'm going to come to you, and Jesse. So I want to touch on a little bit more of the inclusivity side of business, because I think this is something that not everybody probably sits there and spends the time looking at and thinking about before leaning forward into an event, into, planning a launch, a course, whatever it may be. How can we be more inclusive? What does it look like for us as leaders to say, my plan is not just how I make money. How the fuck am I taking care of being inclusive and creating a surrounding and a community that is safe and honors everybody at the level in which they're at?
I mean, the first thing that I always tell people to do is expand your circle. I didn't learn shit until I stopped following, or at least didn't follow as many people, and stopped consuming their content who looked like me. Like, you learn so much from just having people around you and just listening if they are nothing like you. And I don't even just mean on like a race level. I just mean like come from different backgrounds. They're from different countries. I work with nobody. Nobody on my team is from the US. And it's because everyone knows something a little different. Canadians have something a little different. UK has something a little different. Australians have something a little different. And in that, I'm also bringing in like a lot of like world knowledge. And it's easier for me to be able to also spread my knowledge to other parts of the world. But then in that, I'm consistently like looking at, who am I surrounding myself with? Am I surrounding myself with people that also feel similarly? No one ever has to think the same that I do. The people in my household don't even think the exact same that I do. But do you at least have some of the like same values that I do? And I mean that for like the collective. Like, look around you as a person. I majorly, there we go, we're gonna go with that one, stopped talking to a lot of my family because I come from like an extremely conservative, like Alabama, and not like any of them anymore since my mom died really approve of the fact that I surround myself with a lot of like Black, Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islander spaces, because I love learning from like people that are different from me, and they didn't understand that, and they didn't understand why. So that's always the thing I tell people to do first, because it makes it easier to look at your content, your business as a whole, and then also maybe like your website, your graphics, things like that, and then just go, am I talking about this from a me-centered place? Because then when you can look at it, you're looking at it from a more objective place, and you're able to see, are you actually talking to or with other people than just you?
Ooh, and the question that I had there was, how do people feel in the presence of my content? Because I've absorbed content that has made me feel this big. like in maybe different areas of life or whatever it may be. And it's like, how is people absorbing our content? Because we can't just speak to one specific person. Everybody's on a different life journey. Everybody has a different path. And what might be the narrative for one person is not always going to be the narrative for somebody else. And again, this goes back to learning types and understanding that somebody who's been brought up in mass poverty, she can't just think herself rich. Like, there are things that she needs to learn, physical things that she needs to understand to get that into her body. It can't just be a case of don't think small, honey, because like her whole life has been brought up in financial trauma. And we have to take time. And I think this is where, like, especially working with charities last year, I've been trying to stretch that consciousness and understanding of like, how do I actually speak to everybody whilst also holding a standard for my business? Meaning that I can have a 10K offer and, you know, a $7 offer, and they all get to make sense. It's not about me leaking my boundary. It's me understanding, you know, what is required in the conversation. And some of you might have seen a couple of weeks ago, I wrote a post in regard to decisive leadership at a $33 offer. And that post got ransacked. People was like, you don't need leadership at $33, maybe like 10K. And I was like, hold on, you need $33, you need leadership. If you are somebody who's been born in mass poverty, $33 is a lot of fucking money. And I'm not going to sit there and make someone feel small because they can't invest 10,000 right now. At the end of the day, they can take decisive action based where they're at. And it's in opening up our mind that we start to actually have this beautiful flowing community of buyers in our audience, because everybody feels seen and everybody feels held and everybody feels spoken to in a way that's not disregarding. It's not me leaking my standards. It's not me giving hours of my time to, you know, somebody who's not ready to go on that journey yet, but it is me being willing to understand their needs and how I can serve them moving forward, which in turn, just pivoted in this back to like business structure, is it's helped me create a structure where I've constantly got money coming in because I have memberships that are, you know, maybe slightly lower end and they're serving to a certain clientele. I have clientele coming in at 10K, 5K, you know, $100. And there's this constant stream of money that's making the larger amounts of money feel so easy. But when I tell people like the 10K pay in fulls, the 20K pay in fulls, they're just the juicy icing on the cake. Like that isn't the stamina of my business. The foundation of my business comes from this constant flow of like 5K, 500, 1,000, 3K. Like that's the constant flow. And then when you get these pay in fulls, like it's the juicy icing on the cake. But I don't want to have 20 one-to-one clients at 10K. Like that is not my fucking desire. So therefore, I've had to create spaces where I can be intentional with my boundary. I host a mastermind at this price, whilst also having a membership at this price, not taking away from any or the other. So what I'll do is, because I know we've gone over time slightly, I would love for you to just riff on how we can follow you, where the ladies can come and find you. And if you have any questions as you're watching them, please do just comment and tag us in the comments section as well. Lana, I'll come to you first because I know you have to jump.
Thanks so much for having me again, Rosie. I always love like doing bits of work with you and riffing on stuff. It's so good. So I'm obviously Lana Robinson by Coaching by Alana. So you can find me on Facebook under that, TikTok, Instagram. I basically help women in business, not with business. I can help you with your business, but I'm better at weight loss and nutrition. So I'm a weight loss nutrition coach for women in business. So I help you free yourself from fad dieting, get off of the diet cycle, find food freedom so you can have more vitality and be top of your industry, whether that is you have your own business and you really want to kind of, you know, get more mental clarity, focus, energy, support your body better, or whether you are really career driven and maybe, you know, you're kind of top of your game in a corporate industry. So yeah, follow me. I offer a free 15-minute discovery session, which you're more than welcome to book. All my inbox is just always open for a chat. So that's me.
Okay, Kristen, where can we find you?
Thank you so much again. I always love doing these. These are so much fun. I'm Kristen Kubik. I am notoriously on Instagram at Kristen Unfiltered. It's the same username on TikTok and also YouTube. And I love, love, love DMs. You're more than welcome to also add me on Facebook. I really just post memes of my dogs and stuff like that. So notoriously, if you want business, go to Instagram. And I am loving, loving, loving talking to everybody in the DMs. I always just say, just don't send me weird photos. That's it.
I love it. And thank you, ladies, for being here. I've loved the way that this conversation has just naturally steered itself. There will be another guest speaker panel next month, and we're going to be speaking all about motherhood and business, and really how to integrate motherhood and business without them feeling like conflicting narratives. Now, if you want to go follow the ladies, I'll drop their details, or they can drop their details below. If you want to be a speaker inside of the guest speaker lounge, then please do drop me a DM. And these ladies have their own masterclasses inside of our Misfit Business Lounge container as well. All right, bye.